If you're thinking about starting a podcast this year and want pro level audio without all the complicated tech, this video is for you. Today, we're gonna show you an easy podcast setup that still has incredible sound quality that will not overwhelm you or break the bank. Let's dive into it.
You gotta just press record.
What's up, everybody? Craig Pruitt here with Think Media, and I'm actually joined today by my wonderful wife, Macy. She's a fellow creator, creative, photographer. You've done a lot of things, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're awesome. I like you.
Thanks. I like you too.
Well, today we're actually going to be talking about this budget podcasting setup right here that we have on the table. It's great for both solo creators if you're wanting to start your podcast completely by yourself, or you want to start a two-person podcast where you have yourself and a guest in studio. And actually, it also works really well for having remote guests call into your podcast episodes as well. Today's video is actually sponsored by Storyblocks, but we'll talk about them a little bit more later. The first thing we want to mention, though, is that if you're thinking about starting a podcast, we highly encourage you to turn on a camera to leverage the video podcasting format like we're doing here. So grab a smartphone or grab a camera you have lying around, because then you can take those files and repurpose the content in new ways, like creating YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels, or even just creating a full-fledged video podcast. And I know, Macy, you have experience doing this at a large church that you worked for.
Yeah, I ran social media for a couple years, and having the video files to go along with the audio files was huge for us because we were able to create short form content and put it in places like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube Shorts, and we were able to reach a much larger audience than we would have been able to without the video.
Absolutely. So that's why we encourage you to grab a camera and
you gotta just push record.
I love it. I love it. Look at that. She's the natural. So let's start breaking down some of this tech that makes up this podcast setup, starting with the microphone. So the microphone we chose for this build was the Fifine AM8. We can't land on if it's like Fifine or Fifine. What do you think?
I think if you don't know, you just gotta act like you know,
we
just
know
be
what's going on.
confident.
Yeah. Well, okay. I'm going to say Fifine then. We're going to lock it in at Fifine.
Okay,
So this
works.
microphone is an XLR and USB-C mic. So you have both of those output options. I think what's cool about it is if you want the most basic option, you could run a USB-C output from this microphone directly into a computer, and then you can bypass all this interface stuff. But it's really tricky to do that with more than one microphone. So ideally, if you're going to use more than one mic, you're going to use the XLR ports and run all of that into some sort of audio interface, which is actually the type of setup we're creating today. Now, this mic only costs $57, and for that $57 price, it's actually also going to come with this boom arm that attaches to a table. So you're able to kind of manipulate this boom arm and position your microphone exactly where you want it to be in your set. And you don't have to pay an additional fee to grab a boom arm or some sort of mic stand to mount your microphone. Now, in terms of sound quality for the Fifine microphone, I think it sounds really good, honestly. And I was testing it against my $500 Shure SM7DB. So that microphone is like 10 times more expensive. And it honestly sounded really good. Like, I was shocked at the comparison. I even swapped it in for some of my Zoom calls over the last week. Nobody knew the difference.
Nobody called you out.
Nobody called me out. They were like, dude, your audio sounds great. I would even ask people like, do I sound any different? They're like, no, I mean, you sound good.
So you got gypped.
Right? Why did I spend $500? I love that microphone, and I think it is a little bit better.
If you only have $57 though.
Exactly. Like, this is a great starting point. I mean,
For sure.
Everybody can hear us right now. I mean, I think it sounds really good.
Yeah.
This mic also has some other features that we're not using because they're designed for the USB-C format. So there's like an LED light on here and some physical dials and a mute switch, but all of that you wouldn't need because that's going to be controlled by our audio interface, which we'll talk about in just a second. So this microphone is all running into the heart and soul of our podcasting setup, which is the Vocaster 2 audio interface. So this is the best audio interface that I have found under $100, and it actually used to be $300 when it first launched. And it's come down in price over the last couple of years, all the way down to $99, which is wild for what you're getting out of this unit. So you're able to plug in two XLR style microphones, which is the setup we're using right now. This interface actually has up to 70 decibels of gain. So all that's really going to mean is it's going to be powerful enough to power a lot of different types of microphones, even really expensive microphones like the Shure SM7B. That's like one of the best podcasting mics of all time. It's able to power a mic like that. That's like $400. That needs a lot of gain. And here we're using some pretty basic microphones and it's working totally fine as well. There's also a couple of 1/4-inch headphone inputs on the front of the unit, and those are they're labeled host and guest, but you can just use it for whatever a corresponding XLR port you have plugged in, and you can decide which one you want for your guest and your host. And there's also ways that you can pair this with your smartphone. If you want to like receive audio from your smartphone, you could take like a phone call during a podcast recording, which is kind of cool, and have guests call into your show like that, or even play like Bluetooth audio or something from your cell phone, which is a cool feature. There's also a really interesting 3.5 millimeter TRS output, and this is dedicated for cameras, which is really cool because now you're able to take the Vocaster's audio from multiple microphone sources and still be able to listen. And I can hear Macy's voice, she can hear mine right now, but I can run all of this audio directly into a camera via the microphone jack on like our Sony FX30 right here, and it would be receiving all of this audio in real time. Now, I wouldn't have as much ability to manipulate the files, which is why I'm still recording inside a GarageBand right now, but that is still a really cool feature for maybe people who are live streaming or want to do a little bit less work in post-production.
Yeah, and looking at it sitting here on the table, it's nice because there's some physical buttons that you can control functions with. There's little dials for the volume of the headphones that you're working with. There's a mute button. There's an effects button. So a lot of stuff just right here, ready to go.
The Vocaster 2 also comes with a software called Vocaster Hub, and basically this is a control and monitoring software for customizing your sound and also accessing basic like mixing board functions. So you can control and view all of your audio levels from this software, as well as add some like basic effects if you want to add those as well. So honestly, this is a pretty powerful little mixer, and all you got to do is connect that to your computer or even your smartphone if you have a recording app on your smartphone, and now you're able to record high quality audio to your software of choice. Now, before we get into the rest of this setup, I want to take a moment and talk about our sponsor of this video, Storyblocks. Storyblocks gives you unlimited access to a massive library of high quality stock assets, all for one predictable subscription cost. They have amazing 4K and 1080p footage. They've got motion graphics and music and sound effects and much, much more. I've actually personally been using Storyblocks for about 8 years to fill in all of the different pieces of my video projects when I don't have time to go out and shoot some additional B-roll. And podcasters are also going to love Storyblocks when it comes to finding assets for their video podcast, or even creating some compelling sound designs with the music and sound effects that they have in their content library. Storyblocks is also making a point to highlight real artists' work, capturing stories and emotions from real creators and talent that AI just is not able to replicate. We love using Storyblocks at Think Media, and if you want to try it out, you can visit storyblocks.com/thinkmedia or visit the link down in the description. So we've talked about the microphones and the audio interface. There's just a couple last pieces here to round out our podcasting kit for beginners. The first would be these headphones from Technica. These are the ATH M20X. I chose mine in black. We got white for you. Do you like the white?
I do like the white.
Good.
It's nice.
I think it looks crispy on you. It just kind of accentuates your beauty.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Honestly, I think these headphones sound really good, and I've used them for editing in the past, and we just picked up this pair, the white pair, for the podcast setup too. So I think they sound good. They also feature a super long cable. The cable is like 10 feet in length, which is really helpful if you don't want your audio mixer to be right here on the table. You can actually have this on a desk somewhere else, or you could even have a different operator operating your mixer or something. These headphones also feature a 1/4-inch adapter on the end so that you're able to plug these into the Vocaster with those 1/4-inch inputs for headphones. But that adapter also comes off for these headphones if you want to use it with your computer or a smartphone, which is really helpful. So yeah, overall, these are actually a really great starter option for beginner podcasters, and they're only $49 headphones, so you could always upgrade your headphones later, but I think they're pretty comfortable and they also sound really good. And then the last thing that you would need for this setup are just a couple of XLR cables, and we went with these Cable Matters XLR cables from Amazon. These are just really basic XLR cables, and all XLR is just a type of audio cable. There's different types of audio cables, 3.5 millimeter, 1/4-inch, all these different types, but this whole system runs off of the XLR cable type. So you just need a couple of these, and they're only going to run you about $20 or $30 for a pack of 2. Now let's talk about how you actually start recording a podcast with the Vocaster, because again, the Vocaster does not have a built-in recording option. Maybe you can see over my shoulder here is the Rodecaster from Rode. It's the Rodecaster Pro 2, and that has the ability to record directly to the unit itself, but the Vocaster does not. So you have to to take the USB-C output, plug that into a computer, and then begin recording to a software of your choice. The good news is though, there's a ton of different softwares that you can record your audio directly to, and a lot of these softwares are even free. Things like GarageBand comes free on any really Mac OS device. There's also Audacity, which is one of the most popular free podcasting softwares, and it has a lot of high-end recording features. You could check out Audacity, and the Vocaster itself actually comes with a license to Hindenburg Lite, which is Focusrite's software, and you could upgrade to Hindenburg Pro down the road if you want to for a pretty low monthly fee. Since I'm on the Mac setup, I decided to record this whole setup inside of GarageBand, and let me show you really quickly how you can get this set up. So the first thing you'll want to do, whether you're on Mac or Windows, is to select the Vocaster 2 as your output and input device in your audio settings. So dive into your sound settings, select output, and make sure Vocaster 2 is selected for your output device as well as your input device. After that, we can open up GarageBand and start a new project. We're going to start by selecting a mic or line audio source, and I'm going to select input 6, and we'll also select input 5 because these are the channels that the Vocaster registers as the XLR outputs. So select input 6 because I'm actually using the guest position for this podcast setup. So I'm going to hit create, and very quickly we'll be able to see my audio registering right here. So if I tap this mic, we can see those audio levels spiking. The next thing I'll do is right click on my track, and I'm going to configure the track header. And we need to be able to see things like record enabled, track lock is nice to see too. Those are important, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So now that we have my mic set up, I'm actually going to hit record enable right here so that we can enable this audio track to record. And now we're going to right click in this open space, add a new audio track. Now audio track, we're going to label Macy's microphone. So we'll label it Macy. But right now you can see my audio levels are the same. They're not any different. That's because I need to change Macy's audio track to be the mic registering here. So if I go down to the inputs in the Vocaster, input 5 is the other audio source for the XLR. And I'll link in the description a little cheat sheet that you can look at to see all of the different input numbers. So if you want to select the microphones, it's 5 and 6, but there's all of these different inputs that you can select. Maybe you would want a computer source and to record your audio of your computer if you had like a video you were reacting to or something. There's lots of different inputs, so I'll link that here in the description so you can check that out. So now I'll switch over to that microphone, and you can see the audio levels are a little bit different now. I'll have Macy tap her microphone, and you can see that's Macy's mic. We also want to enable the track recording for her track so that when we hit record, both of these tracks are recording. A couple other things you might want to adjust. Sometimes this count in is selected and the metronome. You want to make sure those are unchecked and are not purple, as well as probably come up to here to these display mode settings and change from beats and project to time. This way, as you hit record, you can see your timer start to count up and you'd see the duration of your podcast recording. At this point, we're ready to hit record, and we've selected both of our enable record tracks right here. They're blinking red, so we know we're able to record. Go ahead and hit record, and you'll see that the audio starts recording, and we can see that my audio channel is very visible right now. And then if I tap Macy's microphone, we can see that those audio channels are independent of each other. So I can export each individual track so that I can edit them independently. And that's really helpful for getting just better audio out of my final podcast recordings. When you're ready to end your podcast recording, you can just go up and hit stop. Now, the easiest way to export each of these audio layers would be to solo one of the tracks and then head up to share. I know you can't see this right here, but there's a share button on my screen, and hit export to disk. When you click this interface is going to pop up, and you can decide where you want to export this to. But typically I like to export a wave, an uncompressed 24-bit wave, the highest quality audio file that I can get. And then I can rename that to whatever I want and then hit export. And then it'll render out this whole track right here. And then I would do the same thing for Macy's audio by soloing that layer and then exporting Macy's audio. So that's how you would record in here inside of GarageBand. But a lot of these audio podcasting softwares are really similar, and it's going to be a really similar process for recording your podcast. So that's a breakdown of this entire budget and beginner-friendly podcasting setup that all costs under $335 for everything you see here. You're going to get a couple microphones, an audio interface, 2 sets of great headphones, and some audio cables. This is everything you need to get started for podcasting. And then your last step would be to grab a camera or your phone and turn on the camera and hit record so that you can turn your audio podcast into a video podcast. And if you want to learn how to start a video podcast this year, we actually have a dedicated video on this to show you step by step what you need to do. So you can watch that video right here, and we'll see you in the next one.